Hello and welcome to This Car Pod.
I'm Kennan.
I'm Filippo.
And this is Mike the Audi Robot. And today we have a lot to cover. Let's start with the Mclaren W1. Mclaren has announced their newest supercar, which follows up on their many previous supercars. They're trying to say that this is a successor to the F1, the P1, the W1. They're trying to think that we forgot about the Speedtail, the Sabre, the Senna, all the other...
all the ones we're forgetting also.
The Elva.
Oh yeah, the Elva. Yes, I totally forgot. McLaren keeps coming out with multi-million-dollar cars.
McLaren wishes you'd forget about the
But only two.
Their buyers did.
So did the market.
Only two are letter followed by number.
Yeah, so W1, the worst sounding letter they've come out with. They wanted to call it W.
Well, outside the
P1.
excellence in name selection, is what's notable about this car? What sort of power is it making?
Okay, this car has 1,258 horsepower and only weighs 3,084 pounds. Now, it's a new twin-turbo V8. It is notable that it has that much power and that much weight because it weighs a lot less than like a Revuelto and it has a lot more power than a Revuelto. It's a quite impressive power-to-weight situation. It's gonna do, you're not interested in this car.
When you say all new V8,
They claim it's
all new.
I'll never forget years ago when I was younger, Chevy came out with a Tahoe, new Tahoe, and it had a brand new 5.3 liter V8 and a brand new 6 liter V8, which happened to be the exact displacements of the previous engines.
Yep.
And we're not going to verify; they just said they were new. So yeah, McLaren could be the same situation. McLaren says they're only going to build 399 of these, and that they claim they're all sold out, which I find it tremendously hard to believe.
Yeah.
They have verbal promises.
They have verbal
commitments.
they have commitments at events. People signed a card at
Quail.
Quill and Goodwood Festival.
No, I mean, there's certainly a market for whatever is the hyper car. And that's an incredible power to weight ratio. That's incredible power, especially for a hybrid supercar thing.
Right. But it's yet another in this line of McLarens. You're uninterested in this car because there's too many.
Yes. Now, the F1 when it came out was crazy because they'd never built a road car before.
Crazy.
And it was the fastest car in the world and it won them all. The P1 came out, again, a company that hadn't built many road cars. They came out with this insanely powerful successor to the Icon.
And at the time, the P1 was like the halo above the 650S and the 570S and the MP412C. Like it did have that place.
Absolutely.
Okay,
so important that it was put in the Holy Trinity with the other two from the Ferrari and Porsche.
And then
this comes out and it's like, well,
we've already seen a Speedtail, we've already seen a Sabre, we've already seen a Senna.
And the Speedtail is touted as like the spiritual successor to the F1 because it had the center seating position and all that, and it was top speed focused.
I named them all because one thing that I find interesting is like Porsche hasn't had a halo car, hypercar since 10 years ago. Ferrari hasn't since LaFerrari 10 years ago.
Yeah.
McLaren seems to always have a car in this. Like it seems like if you want to buy a $2 million McLaren, which by the way is the sticker price of this vehicle somehow, if you want to buy a $2 million McLaren, there's always one available to you. It's always there.
Well, McLaren needs money. Desperately, always.
But their buyers must be getting fatigued. Like, you have to
There's
imagine.
also a fatigue that sets into the market, and this has been proven by what has happened to the values of these cars. Mm-hmm. There's a fatigue that sets into the market when you come out with so many special cars that the values just are simply not there when the cars go for resale. A 918 Spider right now is trading for double its original MSRP. Carrera GT is trading for 3x MSRP. Enzos are 4x, 5x MSRP. Well, that's because they were always scarce. McLaren's, there's always special, and P1, even though it was the rarest of the 918 LaFerrari, it is the cheapest by far because a lot of people are like, another special McLaren.
How much do you think the McLaren was helped by the Holy Trinity existing? Like, had they come out with the P1 without there being a LaFerrari and a 918, would anybody have cared? Like, was it only because
That's an interesting question. Never thought about that before. Because there was no Holy Trinity for Speedtail.
I think that people would have if McLaren had. I mean, they marketed it as the successor to the F1. This is our supercar.
Well, this is the successor to the F1 as well.
Right.
No, that's an interesting point. If the competition hadn't been there, where people have just not cared. Because for the Speedtail, there was no competition, and people kind of didn't care. And the Elva, I mean, there was competition, actually. There were windowless cars from Aston Martin and Ferrari, and none of them found buyers.
Ariel Atom. they were like useless.
Anyway, look, I think this is incredibly cool. Enormous power, enormous cost, very rare. It's going to be super amazing. We're going to see when it's really cool. But they unquestionably have cheapened the brand with all these halo cars over the last few years.
But look, this is, to be fair, looks different than the 720S, 570S, etc.
From the side profile, I don't think it looks all that different.
From the front,
Just kind of
marginally
another
different.
McLaren. Yeah, no, it has some different
And
look
the
to it.
interior is
Going doors, not butterfly.
I think the market is generally fatigued by all the $2+ million hypercars, the Utopia. And
Yeah.
it's
people
just like,
still buy them. You know,
people purportedly buy them, but I swear they only buy them to flip them to try to make money on the next one.
At least this one's not vaporware. This will actually exist. It's from a real manufacturer, so you know.
Purportedly, anyway.
yeah, and they probably won't go bankrupt between now and delivering it.
Purportedly, anyway.
Especially if they keep doing as well as they're doing.
I think we have one more
F1
photo of it.
Oh,
Interior. Great.
an interior picture. Kennan, anything
interior
you want to
photo.
say about the interior?
Well, I mean, it looks like someone had explosive diarrhea. Interior, honestly.
I can't believe you said it. All right, pull that picture back up. That picture, it appears there's some spray there.
It's a very odd interior design.
It is an odd interior design and color choice.
Yep.
Yes.
It also-
Okay, moving on to our next news story. Oh, yes.
my favorite news story
My
of the week.
favorite news story of the week.
Yep.
Mark Zuckerberg posted on Instagram, I think it was Instagram,
Facebook, maybe, who knows?
or Facebook. Facebook probably
He
owns
owns
that
them both.
property.
Same.
That
Might
his
have been
wife
WhatsApp.
wanted a Cayenne, but also a minivan, and so they had West Coast Customs create them a Cayenne minivan. And I think we've discovered why there is no Cayenne minivan by this. I like Zuckerberg. Even when everyone else hated him and thought he was a robot, I liked him. It came out this week. He has a Cadillac CT5V Blackwing.
Yep.
And
Yeah, it's cool.
he paired this with like a GT3 Touring
Yeah.
or something. But this is not a knock on Zuckerberg. I truly think he's cool. But this is a
This
heinous
is so cool.
thing.
It's so cool.
It's a limo length.
We talk frequently. For people that aren't watching, that are listening, it's a Cayenne Turbo GT
Yep.
coupe that has been extended and appears to have a sliding door.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. We frequently say that we're sad that more people aren't commissioning weird cars like the Solon Brunei used to, like coach builders used to produce.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Somebody did, and it's hideous, but it's cool.
Quite bad. And I think that Zuckerberg and his wife will quickly discover why Porsche hasn't built a car like this. The whole point of the Cayenne, especially the Turbo Coupe GT, is that the dynamics are
Right.
almost completely related to the sizing and chassis development. And they did not develop the chassis with a 58-inch stretch to create a giant sliding door, which, by the way, has no visible door handle.
I'm sure that
Yep.
will be reliable.
I'm sure it's going to work just fine.
It's just cool. Yes, sure, there are issues. Although the shop that did it, famously of Pimp My Ride fame,
Yeah.
deserves, we should ask if there's an aquarium inside of it.
I hear you like fish.
As of screen.
It's just cool.
Placed it.
I love that people do weird things like this. And
I
if you have more
agree.
money than God, to go do it.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean?
Spend it on this.
Like, yeah, but it's like it's heinous.
It does.
You know what would have been cooler? Taking a Pacifica and TRDing it, or taking a Sienna and TRDing it, or taking a Pacifica and Hellcating it. That would have been a minivan. Instead, taking a Cayenne and turning it into a minivan, it's heinous. It will not drive like a Cayenne.
You guys are thinking about this all wrong.
It's 14 feet too long for a parking space.
It's probably not that long.
Well, look
Hey,
at
Filippo.
a normal Cayenne.
Look, is that how big the normal door is?
A normal Cayenne's door, the wheel arch would start in the middle of the door. So this, I'm no joke, it's probably 3 feet
Suburbans
longer.
exist.
Okay, but does a Suburban drive like a Cayenne? That's the problem that I have here. We have the worst of all worlds. We turned the Cayenne into a minivan, so now we're driving a minivan. We took the Cayenne and destroyed the design, so now it's ugly. And it probably doesn't drive all that well because it's 3 feet longer than a regular
Nobody
Cayenne.
that has a Cayenne Turbo GT has driven it hard. They just want to go fast in a straight line. People don't hustle them.
Well, I guess we
And
have news,
it's fine.
Mark. When you and your wife don't like this car anymore, get a Pacifica, put a Hellcat motor
Put a
in
Hellcat
it.
motor and sell this one on Cars and Bids, and it will get to its full value, which is less than the value of a stock Cayenne Turbo GT. I think
Yep.
that's unquestionably true.
No chance. I would pay money for that.
You would not. It doesn't fit anywhere. You're crazy.
I think it's so. I love that they did this. Like,
Also, why
it's so
do
cool.
it on the GT?
Yeah, that's odd.
I think it was cool when people did this back in the day. Really rich people commissioned
Yep.
the automakers to do it.
Yep.
Going to West Coast Customs and say, extend. I mean, you could do. It's a limo. It's essentially what's the difference
Yeah.
between this and a town car? You interested in a limo?
I do like
You want a
limos.
6-door Cadillac?
Yes,
We sell them sometimes.
I would love one.
Okay.
Especially love a Lincoln Continental coach door, but extended.
You're an insane person.
I think that's legitimately cool. I love that they're spending their money in wild ways.
I would also spend money in wild ways, but I put a Hellcat motor in Pacifica. Wouldn't you rather do that?
You would be driving around in a
Intel Design Columbus.
Intel Design Columbus.
You know, that's a good point, and that's way uglier than this. You know what? Zuckerberg's a genius. That's the story. All right. Oh, okay. We're talking about the Cybertruck.
We're talking about the Cybertruck. There was a news story last week that Geico was apparently canceling insurance policies on Cybertrucks. They have since put out statements saying that they aren't necessarily doing that in all cases, but there are reports of people receiving letters saying, hey, your policy won't be renewed. Which is interesting. You could buy a Cybertruck, and your insurance company could say, this hunk of stainless steel is too dangerous, we don't have data on it, and we can't trust you to drive it.
This is like buying a home in the flood zone?
It is like, it's exactly like that. And at some point, I wonder whether like this will become more common, where there's vehicles where they just either don't have enough information, or just they're so outrageous and dangerous to society, as the Cybertruck kind of is, that people won't insure them anymore.
Why are they not? Are they not trying to insure it? I mean, they didn't even admit that they were doing this. But is it because of the danger to the cost of the truck, or to hitting people?
I bet it's a little bit of both, right? I imagine their repairs are incredibly costly, and that they can't underwrite them correctly. And I also imagine there's some liability component, given that it chops people's hands off. I think it's probably a combination of they can't underwrite them properly.
Have you noticed they got the wheel covers back?
I'm sorry?
The wheel covers, when the Cybertruck first came out, you know those crazy looking wheel covers they first had?
Sure.
They had to recall them all because they were rubbing on the fender.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Well, they're back. They're uglier, but they're back. So you can get wheel covers on it now. And they're cool. And if I got a Cybertruck, I'd insure it right with Geico.
The reason I wanted to bring it up is that it's an interesting situation where like federal regulations are sufficiently lax, I guess, such to allow a vehicle like this. But should there be some requirement that insurers do insure anything that is sellable as a new car in the U.S.? Is it reasonable for an insurer to say, no, we can't underwrite this properly?
I mean, my insurer won't underwrite my cars. I had to go to a specialty.
Right.
So I don't think should be any insurance requirement. I don't think you can mandate a private company to insure it. Heinous. Is this a press photo? Or is this a picture you just found?
I think this is just a picture.
On the internet, right? I mean,
I don't think a press photo they'd want just a guy with glasses walking to the pastry shop. I just don't
look at him though. He's turning around thinking, what is this thing? Boy, the excitement of that thing died off quick, huh?
Yeah.
See them all over. It's like, huh?
And values are plummeted. Have plummeted, will continue to plummet.
All right, give us the next one. VinFast. I saw one of these today.
Yeah.
Oh,
you've been seeing them around? I see them around fairly often, at least once a week.
Guess how many are currently for sale through VinFast in the U.S.? They claimed when they came out that they were going to sell some number, many, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. How many do you think are currently for sale in the U.S.?
I don't know. How many? What is the point?
Guess the number. 500.
2,000.
1,700. I have no idea.
Around 200.
Well, but what's the problem with that? Tesla for years had 0 cars for sale, and you would order one, and then it would be delivered.
But that wasn't their model, though, right? They in theory have dealers and inventory.
Well, they're
and it turns out they have no inventory.
Ramp production.
No,
it's difficult. They got to come all the way from Vietnam. You ever been to Vietnam? I did. It's a long flight. You're in the plane. They serve you breakfast. Later, they serve you lunch.
Get a hot towel.
Later, they serve you dinner.
That's a long plane ride.
Yeah.
Many meals.
They're probably on the boat.
They wanted to sell so many, and clearly maybe they don't have supply, but more crucially, they don't have demand to bother importing more.
Didn't you tell me that this is leasing for $199 with 0 down?
I would believe that. I don't know.
Didn't you tell me that? Let me tell you something, folks. This car had terrible reviews when it first came out. Then VinFast sent me an updated one that was fine. You guys were in it. You drove it.
Yeah, hard to find some of those buttons, but it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
It was like fine. It was a boring, normal car, just like the Nissan Rogue has been since it came out in 2008, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Fine. It's $199 a month with 0 down. That's like a cell phone bill.
Apparently maybe inventory is so low because they've all been flying off the dealer lots. But I have my doubts.
I got a buddy in Georgia who told me he's never seen one, and I told him I see them all the time. He said, what? So you crazy? I do see them. I saw one this morning at a shopping center.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I saw one yesterday too.
I believe you.
May have been the same one. They were both black.
There's a chance. They're not selling the tens of thousands they expect. Let's put it that way.
Get one of these if I was looking for a bargain-priced electric car. I'm dead serious.
Would you?
It drove fine. I don't know. If you could lease one.
It's not cheaper than other equivalent leases. You can lease any of the.
Not with 0 down usually. Typically those leases are like $3-4 grand.
Leasehacker.com. Go check it out later.
All right, go on.
It's for some of us spend time.
So you're claiming there's not a lot of VinFast inventory, and I'm saying it's because they are I disagree about demand. Huge demand for this vehicle.
I will say they are the perfect intersection of they have no supply and they have no demand, and therefore it's a market clearing event. We're good.
Oh man,
it's no Fisker Ocean, I'll tell you that. You know what's sad? This company seems a lot better capitalized than Fisker. But the car is boring. The Fisker Ocean was really cool, but the company was a disaster. Yeah. If only VinFast had made the Fisker Ocean, that would have been a hit.
Well, hey, if they want to, I bet they can buy the rights to it very cheaply and just make it a subsidiary. But
Fisker, by the way, under investigation for requiring customers to pay for their own recalls, which apparently you can't do. If you recall the vehicle, you as a manufacturer must pay. Apparently,
it's nice to talk about Fisker again.
They don't have money.
No. They can't
not going to recall. What's going to happen is whatever money is left, they're going to pay for any creditor is screwed, because if there's recalls to do,
I think any creditor is
just, I've already written all that off. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's back to school time, and even if you aren't headed back to school, what is something you'd love to learn? It's always important to make time to learn things about yourself. For instance, I would like to learn how to detail my cars as well as Kennan. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder and your curiosity within. Mental health and therapy are tremendously important to me. I have family members in the mental health space, and I truly believe in therapy and in its ability to create successful outcomes and improve lives. I really, truly do. And BetterHelp is a great way to start the journey. If you've been considering starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge, and rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. To get started, visit betterhelp.com/thiscar today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/thiscar to get started with BetterHelp. All right, next news story. What do you go? Some sort of Rolls Royce.
My story. So the Rolls Royce Ghost has had a facelift. So this is the second generation Ghost now. This is called the Series 2.
Series 2.
And
wasn't there already?
There must have been, because the Series, the Ghost.
This is the Series 2 of the second generation. Got it.
So what was the first?
There was a redesign.
No, I know, but what was the pre-Series?
Series 1.
But then what was the original one called?
Just the Ghost.
That was the Ghost.
But wasn't there a facelift of the first?
There was a Ghost, then a Series 2 Ghost. Then there was a redesigned Ghost. Then there's a Series 2 redesigned Ghost.
Oh, that's confusing.
This is why having chassis designations is.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
this is an F whatever. It kind of does have a chassis.
It kind of does. Yeah. Yeah, it does. But basically, no mechanical changes. Still has the same twin turbocharged 563 horsepower V12.
Fantastic motor.
Amazing engine. Glad that they still make it. Really, the biggest changes are slimmer headlights, slimmer taillights. They continue to use a lot of the same infotainment stuff. But the thing to me that they've introduced is this duality twill interior.
Oh wow!
Or this material. Now you can get it in 3 different colors. It's made of bamboo. You can get it in 3 different colors. You get it in black, lilac, or chocolate. And when you do that,
is that chocolate?
This would be chocolate, yeah. And when you do that, you can get something that's called the placed perforation pattern, which is this pattern, which is supposed to look like the overlapping RR logo, is kind of what they want here.
Is that what that's supposed to be?
Allegedly. It's heinous. And the better part is that it's available in 51 different colors. Not 50, 51
It looks
colors.
like for people that aren't seeing the photo, look it up first of all, but also it looks like a chain link fence with something holding the links together.
Or some cheap knockoff Gucci bag. It looks really bad.
You guys make fun, but let me tell you something. They came out with the Starlight headliner. Remember that? Changed the whole world. Now everybody who's in every custom shop in the world is putting a Starlight headliner and everything.
Well, even more.
This is Rolls-Royce's next innovation, my friend.
Well, they innovated on the stars. They added it here to the infotainment system, so that it has a time-lapsed celestial photography is what comes standard here.
And they had that badge that went down.
Yeah,
that was an innovation that everybody thinks is cool. And they had those weighted center caps.
Also important.
You're making fun of them. This is the future. Rolls-Royce innovates.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? How many other companies have implemented a Spirit of Ecstasy style emblem or weighted center caps?
Weighted center caps were on that Damson Bentley that I had, believe it or not. They copied Rolls. After all these years, Volkswagen is admitting that BMW won.
Wow. Finally.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Does the steering wheel have to be the same color as the upholstery links?
I think the steering wheel is the worst part of that.
I think the steering wheel is the worst part of this
blue,
particular
folks.
picture. It is as blue as the exterior of the car, which I notice also is blue in this one. But Yeah, and it's also blue on the infotainment screen.
Oh, wow, good.
Good attention to detail.
I will say the Ghost, second generation Ghost, is such a nice car, and I love it, and I
Yeah.
want one, and I want a Phantom 8 too. And if I had a Phantom 8, I would just drive around on it and never talk to Filippo again. I would just sit there in silence, and he'd come up and be like, "Oh," I'd be like, "Nope."
You wouldn't be able to hear me.
Right.
Too much sound editing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd have my wool floor mats.
Yeah, right. And you'd have your wolf formats.
Let me ask you a
you have your
question to
place
both of you.
perforation.
Yeah.
If you were being chauffeur driven in a Rolls Royce with the wool floor mats, dead serious question, would you take off your shoes?
Absolutely. I don't believe in doing it on planes because that's revolting and people do that, but I would do it in this car.
Yeah.
Would you take off your socks?
Well, obviously, you don't get the enjoyment of it through socks.
I'm not sure.
I should also note, we live in Southern California, and as I am right now, flip-flops exist.
Yes, I'm wearing shoes with socks, but yeah, I don't know.
Okay, next up, time for our next segment, the Talk Cars segment, where we talk cars. There's a lot to cover, starting with this. Show us the picture, please.
Oh.
That. So here's the story for you. I get an email, a text the other day from this guy that I filmed years ago. I filmed his McLaren Mercedes SLR and a tank. Okay.
I remember the
He
tank.
lives in Nashville, outside Nashville, East Tennessee.
You don't say.
I haven't talked. Right. You got an SLR and a tank.
It's not Southern California.
So anyway, he sends me a message and says, "Hey Doug, I think we have similar taste." And he's got, you believe this? He's got a white Countach round belly, a Carrera GT, a blue-white Ford GT, and he's got a Diablo SE30, which is if I were to add a fourth car that isn't an F40, it would be a Diablo SE30. We've talked about it a lot. I don't know if I talked about it on the pod, but I think about it all the time. And I'm like, what are the odds that some other dude has literally the same ridiculous 3 cars that I do?
Are you worried that
It
he
is
just went
crazy.
a little bit nicer? Because this looks like a triple white Countach.
It's a triple white downdraft, so that car is nicer. It's $1 million. The Carrera
all
GT is black. Yeah, he didn't get a heritage for. He's got a little bit nicer.
It's got a little on you.
Do you think he still owns the tank?
I didn't ask.
Somebody
He
find
sent
out.
me another angle. Yeah. He's got a TRX too,
Oh,
so we
nice.
have some
Legit.
differences, no doubt. But isn't that crazy?
Wow,
What are
that
the
is
chances that I'm like astonished by this?
This is wild.
They're my cars. This guy stole my car. Actually, I love him. I think he's great. But he did steal my cars. Or maybe I stole his.
Well, so I guess the real question is,
When am I
when
getting
you
the
get-
SE30?
Yeah.
I'm not.
And then you'd have to get a purple one to one-up him. That would take back.
That's the problem. I only want a purple SE30, and the values are too high. And honestly, I don't want any more cars. But I have a G cab instead. That's where we differ.
Yeah, he has a Ram. You have a G cab. It's
Right.
a different approach.
I was just astonished. Somebody sends me a text message, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got these cars. They're the same ones you have." What are the chances?
That is wild.
I never.
What a
hear about
coincidence.
People who have my stupid cars. Plus, they're kind of weird to have a Ford GT,
Yeah.
a Countach, and a Carrera GT. It's like a weird group, frankly.
I'd love to know his thought process. I know yours on why you have those, but
We should have him on. We should have him on the pod.
Let's.
I'd be curious.
Okay, next topic for talking cars.
Yes. So I'm back, which means that I'm playing with my M5 again and
Playing with or
driving and using it. It's been wonderful. But there is one thing it's going to go back to Ryan for this week.
God,
Now, admittedly, this was something.
Filippo.
I didn't know about this till now.
So this was something we tried to rectify. So on the last service, one of the items I had replaced was the AC compressor because it was making noise. Only when the AC is on. When you turn the AC on, it would work fine.
Sometimes fans.
No,
air blows out.
It's a whirring metal sound, a warm
That's
bearing
unfortunate.
sound. And so I was like, replace the AC compressor. He said, no problem.
The
So
dash
Ryan-
is going to come off, isn't it? It's
no,
going to be
no,
$3,000, isn't it?
No, it isn't. So the AC compressor, we replaced it. Noise is still there. So we replaced all the belts and bearings and stuff on the.
Sure.
Noise is still there.
So you just threw
So-
money at this. How much
Well,
money
no. So
did
Ryan
you
was like,
spend?
Ryan said, I can't figure it out right now, but you need the car back. So I got the car back. He had another client come in, same problem.
No.
And so he's been these new AC units that he's been using, the AC compressors, all have this issue. It's a manufacturing defect. So Ryan dug into it and found out that it was this little bearing inside of them that needs to be replaced. It's very cheap to replace, and then you put it in, boom, gone.
You have like take out everything you did.
No, not everything. It's not an engine rebuild.
What
It's
is
actually
the
very easy to
cost?
fix. He said it's going to be, I think it was like $50 to fix.
$50 to take the dash apart and get to the AC compressor?
That's not where the AC compressor lives. It's on the front of the engine. It's very
Filippo
accessible.
and I have done a few AC compressors in our day, all right? We know how to do an AC compressor.
You wouldn't know an AC compressor if I threw it at your head.
Should we fix his this weekend?
Yeah, dude, let's just do it.
No, you stay away from my car. I want to see you
I
guys start going.
fix vehicles.
No, not to my standards, you wouldn't. So
Filippo's a real shade tree.
yeah, he is.
He literally uses the shade of a tree.
Precision. But anyway, yeah. So not very expensive. It's a minor thing, and then that will go away, and my AC will work in perfect silence, which I'm looking forward to.
I am proud of that. I am anxious about the fact that it's going up to Ryan again, where it seems to be a black hole of money spending. You have to promise me that this is the last repair you'll do to the M5 for the next 3 years.
Oh, God.
3? No.
What will you give me? 3 months?
Yeah, end of the year, absolutely.
End of the year, great, lovely. It's October 9. Kennan's not going to work on his car again for 80 days. Speaking of cheap repairs, I have a great story to tell you about the Sequoia. I took the Sequoia into the dealership for the second key. New Toyotas are not delivered with 2 keys anymore. They're delivered with 1 key and a promise. And the promise is that someday Toyota will call you and tell you that your key is ready.
Are they having like they
claim it's supply chain, but I have discovered the real reason that they're doing it. I go into the dealership, and the woman shows me an invoice with 2 cents on the invoice. And I'm like, what is this? And she said, that is the amount that Toyota pays us to program the new key. 2 cents. And so I got the call. I'm skipping ahead, but I got the call that the key was ready. And so what I think is happening is they don't program both keys when the car is delivered new at PDI. Instead, they deliver the car at the key, then you go back in. The second key is delivered and programmed at the cost of 2 cents. They're very generous to the dealers. And then you get your second key. Toyota has figured out a way to save a little cash here, perhaps.
Is that also how they get you to go to the dealership at all?
That's what I was.
I wonder about that. I wonder about that.
They have Toyota Care. You didn't have to pay
that's
anything,
the thing.
right?
You already have free service, so I don't think it's really related. And I'll tell you this, and I've enjoyed the car as much as one can enjoy that car, but it is very annoying to have a car with, it's the most expensive car Toyota sells. So right off the bat, you're like kind of annoyed you're not getting 2 keys, right?
Yeah.
To not have a second key, driving that car all the way across the country, it was
scary.
Not my favorite situation.
Is there an app where you can turn it on?
I do have an app.
Can you turn it on?
And it tells me when the doors are open.
Oh.
But I think I can turn it on.
Let's find out. Pull it up.
But anyway, so I got the second key and the 2 cents, the Toyota dealer, and they programmed it for me and everything went well. Mossy Toyota in Pacific Beach, shout out to my man Gavin. Okay, speaking of Sequoia and his family and friends. All right, pull up this picture. I got a picture I sent in here. I saw this weekend. Did I send this to you?
Oh yeah, you did.
Send it to everybody.
Look at that.
It's a very cool
Sequoia TRD Pro that is green camo wrapped, and it has every off-road accessory that has ever existed.
It is. It looks good.
It looks cool.
The green wrap works. I could do without the mud splatter wrap portion.
And they should have wrapped the front bumper.
I kind of get that.
Quite sure why they didn't. But, it shouldn't be glossy either way.
Yeah.
But I saw this thing and I was like,
so
wow,
cool.
This could be me. Like, I could be this.
Yes, you too could have your car so aggressively prepared to go drop your kid off at school. Because that's what this thing is.
No,
I won't fit into my kid's school
goes
drop-off line. I cannot take my kid to school.
God, this truck continues to get more embarrassing every time you talk about it.
I literally can't do it.
Think about how helpful it would have been to have the spare tire on the rear.
Yeah. It would have been so easy to pull off and replace. That's such a good point. Then again, jacking it probably would have been hard because this dude added like 2,200 pounds of off-road
and also
steel bumpers.
those poor third row passengers. They have no visibility.
They have no visibility, yeah. You know what else is interesting? He added a LED light bar, but it came with one OE, and it's bright.
Well, you need both.
It lights up the world. Anyway, regardless, I saw this thing. I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Who was modding Sequoia TRD Pros?
But it makes sense. People mod 4Runner TRD Pros all the time.
Yeah, but that's like a $50,000 car. This is like an $85,000 car that a dude was like, all right, I'm going to take the bumpers off and wrap green.
I think it's so
people
cool.
spend hundreds of thousands of dollars modifying old Land Cruisers.
But this guy's going to go into the desert and beat this thing up.
And that's the right car to do.
I bet I saw this guy on the way to the desert. He was at sort of a shopping mall. But I bet you that
he has to get supplies to go to the desert. He was getting supplies,
and I bet you right now he's probably on top. I honestly bet he's in the Himalayas.
Can I ask you a question?
He's on top of Everest.
He's on Everest. He's on Everest.
He drove there.
You know what got him there was a roof tent.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He slept at, everybody else is camping at whatever it's called, base camp. He's sleeping in it.
You have often said so many people spend.
Higher than that.
He's 8 feet higher than them.
People do spend lots of money on old trucks to go do stuff, and people laud the old stuff. And you said, my Sequoia is infinitely more capable than those old trucks. Why not just do that? Well, this guy has taken your advice and taken it a step further.
The only drawback, though, is if the trail is wide, if the trail is narrow, you unfortunately no.
You're just going to have to use the inside of the tire, so you just go along the outside.
No, like if there's mountains on both or like a steep drop off, you're just kind of
Find a better trail.
Find a different trail.
I will say, this goes with my theory that the Sequoia is the Land Cruiser of the new generation.
Yeah. I don't. Your theory is both insane and correct.
The new Land Cruiser is not a Land Cruiser. The 300LX is 120 grand and has leather everywhere. The Sequoia is the Land Cruiser. The Sequoia TRD Pro.
300LX.
300 series.
I understood.
Lexus LX.
I understood.
The Sequoia is the Land Cruiser of the new generation. It is the same thing. Top of Toyota's lineup, the most off-road capable. Boom.
Can you spec a Land Cruiser to be more expensive than the most expensive Sequoia?
No, they start at like 50.
But they go to like 80.
Which is insane because boy has a $50,000 vehicle with an $80,000 sticker price never more existed than the new Land Cruiser. Before we move on, let's take a moment to appreciate Lexus Racing, the sponsor of this podcast episode. Lexus Racing has been built on a foundation of precision, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to excellence, much like Kennan. Last year, these elements came together for Lexus Racing, and with their team partners at Vassar Sullivan, they won the 23 IMSA GTD Pro Class Championship with the Lexus RCF GT3. Now, I love this type of racing because the cars that race actually look like road cars, and the engine in the RCF GT3 is actually based on the very same V8 that you get in the normal RCF that you can buy, and it wins races in serious competition. We love cars with racing pedigrees, and while this was the first GT Racing Championship for Lexus, it won't be the last. The team is on track for title contention once again in 24 as they come into the final stretch of the season. You can't miss the Dayglow yellow and black Lexus RCF GT3 race cars or the sound of the famous Lexus V8 engine roaring under the hood. Follow their journey every race weekend. Visit lexus.com/motorsports to learn more about Lexus Racing and get all of the details on upcoming races. Okay, last Talk Cars question, Filippo?
Yeah, so as you guys know, I've been considering buying a funner sports car.
For a year now.
Yeah, and the other day I was hanging out with a producer, Sean, and he pointed out I could just keep the Fiat and add a car. Right, like I could get my dream C7 Corvette or 997 911, which are the same price now, and keep my Fiat.
Right.
As like a little like one of that. It's like $10,000, if that.
It's like 6.
No,
I've seen the car.
6 is generous. Also. Well, he's got new tires on it. It's a 6500.
Yeah.
New tires or did you go
No, they're new. They're
used
new.
tire
I'm
place?
not Nick.
Nick told us, were you here for this? But he used to go to a used tire place in Phoenix, and they would let, for $50, they would let you pick out a tire. You were not here for this. For $50, they'd let you pick out a tire. Any tire on the lot was $50. Brand, tread, it didn't matter. It's $50 for you pick it.
Now he's
Tread.
having a Mercy.
No, not tread. Mercy.
They would put a knife in there and get more tread out.
All right, fine. Call it $7,000 for my car. Fine. But regardless, it's not that expensive, and it's nice. And my wife really enjoys driving around in the Fiat. It's fun, sporty, small, good for San Diego. So I could add a car. Mm-hmm. We've never owned, between the two of us, 3 cars, and that feels excessive given that my wife and I both generally work from home.
Right.
And don't really need to commute in very often. Like, how many cars is too many cars per person? You, of course, own 17.
No, I am only on 6.
6 total. No.
Total. I feel this way very strongly, that there's a number that is too many.
Is it 1.5 per person?
I don't know, but people have given me an enormous amount of criticism on social media for this because I pared down my collection from 9 to 6, and I didn't want to get more. People are like, how could you? You're not a real enthusiast if you're not buying cars. And these people are all 16.
We're having different conversations.
They don't understand.
What I need is somebody to help me justify having more cars than driving adults.
You want the justification to get more. I want the justification to get less.
For at least more cars than there are driving adults. For a while you had 2 cars, there's only one of you. That's the higher car per person ratio.
You want someone to tell you that it's okay to continue adding. I think that there is a headache factor that eventually edit. You drove your Mercedes all the way up to Escondido for God knows what reason.
I get to get a headlight.
Aren't you at some point tired of maintaining 4, 5, 8 cars?
They're both generally easy to maintain. The Fiat, I
never
just
had
decide
that many
don't
cars.
maintain. That's easy.
Yeah, but he always buys crap cars that require an enormous amount of effort. When he had that X5,
X5
he
was
wouldn't like let
I
people
helped him.
drive it because it was so challenging.
But I fixed a lot of things on it.
I sent you a lot of DIYs on how to fix
sure
those
did,
things.
and I did.
But Filippo, you want something fun, and you really want it. Just do it. And
In addition,
yeah,
instead of
it's only 3
He lives
cars.
on a tight cul-de-sac and he doesn't have any garage space. Is the thing.
I live a couple blocks
one of
over.
our
He can
cars
keep on
parks,
over there.
we can park. If I could park a Corvette in my garage and park the Fiat in my very short driveway legally, and the wagon in the street as it always is.
Well, there you go. Then so
It's
what's,
doable.
What's the problem?
It just feels like a little bit excessive.
No, it doesn't.
Sweet. Justification.
I don't
done.
think it's excessive.
I
at
think
all.
it only is excessive when it becomes onerous on your time. And
Right,
I
yes.
felt that 9 was onerous.
Well,
got down to 6.
We're at
Well,
talking about a different ratio here.
we are, but at the same time, I'm much more amenable to this sort of thing than you are. And even I hit a limit. And so eventually at some point you will hit a limit. And I don't know if it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 2.
You could not convince me to own 4 cars
It might.
for 2 people.
Well, when I first
No.
met you, the
The
cheapest
snowball.
person I've ever met in my life, you could barely be convinced to own 1 car.
yeah, I paid $1 for it. It was a hard. It was like a tough internal conversation.
I think that eventually it catches up to you, the annoyance of owning a bunch of cars. So the question is, you need to figure out what that number is. So if it's 3, that might be 3.
Might be 3.
So maybe you can get away with 3 and you're happy.
Right.
The only one way to find out. Do it.
That's true.
Also,
that's how I found out. Eventually, you hit the number, and then you scale to the right number, and that maybe that's
At most, I sell the Fiat, which I was going to sell anyway.
And also, it's not like my cars where the M5,
Yeah,
the
thank
M5
the
and
Lord.
a sports car would not be hard to keep up with. It was the sports car that I chose was difficult to take care of.
The E30
But you want a
alone is hard
Corvette.
to keep up. It's hard.
Right, so I chose that and the most unreliable Ferrari in modern times. But you want a Corvette, which is just, you could fix it with a sledgehammer. I mean, it's not like a big deal.
That would be his strategy.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But you can, you know what I mean? It's not going to be that difficult to take care of.
Can I
Sure.
give you a suggestion of a performance car that you should buy?
Yeah.
Hyundai Scoop.
Oh, an S Coupe.
Well, in Europe, it was called the S Coupe. In North America, it was called the Scoop. Spelled the same, pronounced different. I swear to you. I was there.
Their ads, which
Yes.
they didn't run, said Scoop.
Yes, it was pronounced Scoop here. S Coupe, I only found out about Top Gear. I'd never heard that before in my life when that thing. Here it was called Scoop. It was like a coupe, but it was Scoop. It was like sporty coupe, Scoop. I am not exaggerating at all. In the US, it was marketed as the Scoop. I'm dead serious.
Is that why they then
I
called
was
it?
there. I was alive. You were not. You were
was
a
the-
boy in Italy.
What was the first gen Kia Forte coupe called? It was a coupe. It was a
Coupe,
K-O-U-P.
Yeah.
Was that-
This was years earlier. The
Right.
S, the
And
S
different
Coupe,
brand,
called here the Scoop, was like the early 90s.
No, I'm familiar.
And then the Tiburon came out. Okay, those are
I
our
will
top
buy
cars.
an additional car.
You will buy an
Thank you,
additional
guys.
car. Hey, it's
In
only
the
been-
next 3 years.
It's
I don't
only
know.
been 18 months of you talking about it. I'm sure it'll happen any day now.
I'm no better, but yeah.
Well, that's true. Okay. Next up is time for the market report segment where we discuss the market. Kennan, tell us about BMW E30 M3 market.
Yes. So recently we had an E30 M3 that was live on Cars and Bids. And Filippo and I had talked about this on a little segment we do on the Cars and Bids YouTube channel. We talk about cars that we're excited for the week. What was interesting about this one was that it was no reserve, presented really well, has miles. It was a driver condition M3 with no reserve. So we got a real market depiction of what this thing, a driver condition M3 is worth. And the market decided 50 grand is that number. Now I used to say that the E30 M3 was a lot of money to go slow. And values have come down substantially, but there are always driver condition cars. The really expensive stuff were always the 8-mile cars that was sold by Enthusiast Automotive Group. This one, 50 grand is now the number for driver condition
You know,
E30
Kennan was born
M3.
in 95, and he's always grown up in a world of, maybe 96, and he's always grown up
95.
in a world of fast BMWs.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, you've made fun of the E30 M3 for so long, you convinced me that it was a lot of money to go slow. Recently, I've started to think, I kind of want an E30 M3.
Yeah.
Have you ever driven one?
You just said how you're done.
No, I'm
buying
not.
cars.
Nobody's buying anything. All right, maybe he should get one.
I
You
have
driven
driven one. I have.
It is kind of slow.
It's slow, but it's very.
so
It's the
tight.
sensation. It's the analog experience
this
and like
beautiful
balance,
analog
and
experience. Balance. I'm not
precision.
joking. I think it's like an amazing car to drive.
It is.
Get one of those.
It's
You
50
should've
grand
got
too much
this
for me.
No, he needs torque in his life. He needs V8.
50 grand is also much more than I would ever spend.
But it's not spending because when you sell it, you get
No,
it back.
still no.
All right, I can't.
We can't.
It's
yeah,
actually
but-
like a liability issue for me of like the potential to lose money
Yes.
is higher the more money you spend.
Yeah,
it's not wrong.
But in an E30 M3, I mean, these cars are solid.
Well, I remember a few years ago we sold one that didn't run. It may not have had an engine. I can't remember the situation for like 40 something. So you're right.
I thought that was like 30. I thought that one for like 26 or something.
It was very early on.
Keep going down. Was
There you
was
go.
that one? Is that
for
one?
56. So
Okay, well, the market has changed.
The market
a
has
little
changed.
bit.
yeah.
But I think it's nice to.
Good thing you didn't buy that one.
But I'm always excited when no reserve cars come up because the market speaks for what it's worth. The highest bid takes
What
it
were
home.
the flaws on this one, aside from the fact that it's in Rhode Island?
I think it had an accident, if memory serves. Yeah.
In
an
01
accident.
though, who
In 01, a long time ago. And then just like
And some
normal
small
cosmetic stuff, it seems.
Some
Wow,
rust.
this was actually a pretty cool car, but at 106K, you're starting to think rebuild, I assume.
Yeah, and S14s are very expensive to rebuild, but nonetheless, like, it's nice to know what these are.
Dude, I love these cars. I hate to say it, because I know you think it's a lot of money
No,
to go slow.
that doesn't mean I don't love it.
I love
I
it.
still love it. I enjoy driving the one that I drove, and it was a mint example. But like, nonetheless, it's
How's the market for the Italian M3?
The 320 IS?
Yeah. we sold one once.
we did.
No, I thought we sold another one recently.
We did. I can't.
We sold one and it was for $45,000. So remains strong.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, they're very rare. They're uncommon cars. They may have had the same power or more than the M3, because the M3, when BMW M launched, not everybody knows this, but when BMW M launched, it wasn't intended to be the halo high performance cars in the market. It was supposed to be like a precision handling car. And the early M cars, the E30 M3, the E20 M5, and the E34 M5, they didn't even have the biggest engines in the lineup. There were V8 models. These were all 6 cylinders or 4 cylinders against the M3 that were like, it was supposed to be like sportier, but like with a precision to it, not just like a knockout hammer blow of performance. And then that changed. The market decided it wanted something different, and BMW made that.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, kind of sort of the S38 and like, I mean, there were the engines were still, there was a lot of R&D and cool stuff behind all the engines. But to your point,
they were special powertrains, but it wasn't intended to be like later what became the
range
pinnacle
topping,
high performance. There, you could still get a 540 with a bigger engine and a V8 where the M5 had a 6-cylinder, but then M changed a little bit. I want that E30 M3. Whoever bought that, can you sell it to me for $5,000 less than you paid? $5,000 back.
Just look at it.
You don't think that's cool?
Of course I do.
$50,000 is pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
You'd rather have an early Viper than this?
Oh yeah, I'm still on the early Viper.
But you drive around an original M car. Kennan has a.
Yeah, Kennan has double the cylinder count the E30 M3
I know,
does,
but you have a box fan. I mean, you show up at Cars and Coffee with this, you're like, whoa, E30 M3.
Yeah, but people still go like that with the M5, so I don't know. And they would. It is a wonderful car. It's just the E30 M3. I'm not going to buy one anytime
I
soon.
think for 50, it's a pretty cool. It's a buy. To be honest,
I think for
I watch
50,
these
yeah,
values go higher and higher, thinking to myself, $100,000 stupid for that car. If they're back at 50 for a driver car, I'm starting to think, that's actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a fair number for a very cool car.
Yeah, I think so. Filippo, you wanted to talk about JDM cars.
Yeah, just type in JDM. JDM cars, as more and more have come into the US, there's been like a surge. And that means that prices, especially for like pedestrian ones, are just becoming like just straight up affordable. We sold that Largo Autech Highway Star, which is a Nissan minivan, which was tuned by Autech.
But a tip.
But sure, like these are just like a regular small van for $4,000. We also sold like a different Honda Life, whatever, which is an even smaller van for $3,000. Like these are just
even
cool,
Delica, that Delica for
cars.
$9,000, and also I'm starting to see them everywhere.
Yeah,
even in California,
where they can't legally be registered. Like
where JDM cars
so
are starting
cool.
to become really, really, really common. And I agree, they're like cheap. Honestly, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but if I was looking for a used car, I would at least consider this as an alternative to like a Civic or a.
I still it needs to be for the right buyer.
Click on that.
It needs to be for the right buyer because they
Toyota-
are 25-year-old cars.
Toyota Progre.
Yeah, what?
NC250.
It has a GS300 front end that's been squished.
Look at the whole thing's been squished. Look at that interior photo. Click on that. That is supple.
Wow, that is
something.
What did this car sell for? $5,000? That is supple.
That is supple for the one
$5,900. That is supple. I could take Kennan in that, and he would be a happy guy.
Yeah, that looks very comfortable.
Weird phrasing.
Yeah, I know. The way you said
Right.
and supple, just all of it together. It's a bit much. But those, I mean, look at the seats. They are opulent looking.
And like
is that wood turn signal levers?
Yeah, it is.
Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, it is.
For $5,900,
right?
And you're driving around a Fiat 500 Barth, you can have this. Go back to that JDM page. Let's see what we get for the price of.
And like I know that in Japan these are incredibly cheap cars. Standards are different, markets are different. So like these are just very cheap. So there's still profit to be made by importers, but barely because these like
See, I wonder about that.
I want this.
How does I saw this come through? I was like, this is cool. And that sold for $9, and I was like, why didn't I buy this?
11.5. But
The only problem with these cars,
by
is
the way,
that
what we're looking at is a Legnum VR4, which is a 5-speed manual twin turbo V6 Galant wagon.
yeah, well, in all-wheel drive. This was an Evo, but in a Galant body with a wagon.
And it costs $11,000.
The problem with these cars is, and by the way, Evos are cheap too. The problem with these cars is that they're right-hand drive. I think ultimately, if they were all left-hand drive, the market would value them completely
I
different.
think right-hand drive matters. The fact that they're all 25-year-old cars, like there
but
are
25 now is 2,000.
25-year-old Galant, regular Galant, is a $500 car. So like,
I know.
there's still like a premium
but
for it
we're
being
getting into
cool,
like a
but-
modern era of cars.
Yeah, we are.
25 is 2,000. Like these are not like you're importing a vintage Japanese car with chrome bumpers and the little mirror on the fender. Like,
your carbed Escargot, which had carburetors, like that's something you might want to do.
Yeah,
you're
this is like a modern car with like a touch screen in some cases, not this
and
one.
I assume a 276 horsepower twin turbo V6.
Like these are cool, and
course.
you're right that a lot of these have shown up, and I agree with you. I'm surprised there's even still profit left to bring them over.
It's gotta be tight.
What ends up happening in Japan is that these cars age out. Like in Japan, there's very strict safety inspections, and eventually the cars just age out of being able to be registered there, and so they all swim to other countries. It's often New Zealand or Australia because they're right-hand drive. Well, I was in Malta, and half the cars on the road in
interesting.
Malta are ex-Japanese, and they come here because it's cool.
Yeah.
And so people buy them. Kennan included.
I meant to.
I don't think so.
One market report subject I want to discuss. I was sitting on the front porch of a house I was renting in Atlanta. And a Ferrari 458 drove by, and it was a beautiful car. You ever see a 458?
Rarely.
Okay, well, it's beautiful.
I'm like familiar with the car, but it's rare that I see one.
And a lot of them have been heinously modded, but this one was just perfect. And I thought to myself, what does that cost? And the answer is a lot. Do you know that 458s are still
That's
tremendously
wild.
expensive? They're 200 minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're 200 minimum. 200
Sold
to
one
250 gets
few
you a
weeks ago.
458. High mileage ones crack into the high ones, but they're still very expensive cars. Sticker on this car is probably 240 10 years ago, and it's still selling for 212.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, it still looks incredible and modern
Absolutely a beautiful car.
in a way that like the 360, 430 don't. They're beautiful. Well, the 430 is beautiful. They don't look the same level of modern. Like this is still very similar.
Ferrari essentially still carries this design onto the modern.
Right, exactly. Pininfarina did a great job, and then Ferrari's like, we do our own design now, and they took it over and they're like,
That is one
we
of the
just
great
do a
hilarities.
458 with a
I
body.
never really thought about it. That is one of the great hilarities. Pininfarina
Pininfarina
designs
got
the
the last
458 perfectly. I think it's the most beautiful Ferrari in.
Since the 355.
And then Ferrari just all they do is like revise the design until 296 like yesterday, and this came out in 10. But I am surprised at what these are still going for. There's a component of it is that they're NAV8 cars, and that's like the last of the last. And a component of it is that their new Ferraris have gotten so expensive that it hasn't put a lot of downward pressure on used ones. Because 360s and 430s are also still big money.
Yeah.
They're not really getting, like Porsche's, the 991s put pressure on the 997s, the 996s, and that hasn't really happened in the Ferrari world because new ones just keep getting more and more expensive. I mean, a 296 is probably a 400 car at this point.
Yeah, with options and stuff. Yeah, my uncle paid $414 or something.
414.
Crazy.
So, I mean, this is a pretty cool car for 200.
My other uncle's
It's still
458.
big money for a 12-year-old. That is such a cool-looking car.
Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, no, it is a lot of money. But yeah, I mean, for all the reasons that you touched on, and atop all of that, they are awesome to drive.
Yeah.
They offer such a great driving experience. And the engine really is the thing that makes them so special. Like, because you drive this and then a 48 after, you clatter into the rev limiter immediately because just the rev nearly as high.
It's
They
amazing
really
to me that the
got it right.
430 was then after the difference in modernity between this car and a 430 is wild.
Yeah.
This car was a totally new generation. And it was a new generation, but it feels like there's a missing car that should be between them, like linking them.
That said, of course, there are there are some limitations. For instance, you can connect your phone via Bluetooth to the car. Can't stream music on it. If you want to do that, you have to plug into the car and download it to the hard drive on the car, which I had to do with this one.
That's a thing.
Yeah,
That happened in 2012
nonetheless, yeah, it is surprising that they are so expensive, but it does make sense for all the reasons you outlined, and that's just a lovely car.
I mean, that 215 grand for a 23,000 mile car. This was that one that Ferris sold. It was no reserve. I mean, I think that helped. But they're still pretty big money, but they are just such cool cars. And when I see one to this day, I still want one.
Can I ask 2 questions related to this? Do you think it's 2% better than a 456, as the numbering would imply? And then the second question is, at what point do SF90 values and 458 values?
Dude,
in the night.
Right now, you can decide between a 2-year-old SF90 or a new 296. And I
And
got
which
to be
would you
honest.
choose?
I got to be honest. I would take the 296.
Yep.
It looks better. It
Yep.
drives the same, and you don't have to drive around with the stigma of being a guy who lost $500,000 on an SF90. That is a yikes car. Okay. Time now for the questions segment of our podcast. Questions. They come from our audience.
Ooh.
If you want to ask a question, you can go to carsandbids.com, click on the community tab, and there will be a post there that says questions. Ask your questions here, and you can post your question for us, and we will answer the highest upvoted questions. This week, the number one highest upvoted question was from Sam Gilman. Sam writes, "Hey Doug, my name is Sam. I am also a YouTuber for a living with almost 2 million subscribers. I don't do automotive content. I am a musician." And he then mentions his channel and band name is First to 11. We're wondering if you would be willing to do a collaboration. I want to explain why it is hard for us to do, I'm going to answer this generally. I'm going to explain why it is hard for us to do collaborations. We have a studio here where we have a lot of cars and a lot of equipment.
Including a Subaru Crosstrek.
There's a Crosstrek in it right now. And we film a lot of content here. Today, just today, we will shoot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 videos. Today.
Legit.
And so whenever and yesterday we shot, I don't know, many.
Some of us have jobs and it doesn't feel like it.
And so, yeah, that's most of my life. And so the result of that is that it's difficult for us to go somewhere. I looked this band up, and First to 11 is in Erie, Pennsylvania. That's a difficult trip. You lose 2-3 days going anywhere to collab with somebody. And so the result of that is that it's been difficult for us to do anything other than kind of the content that we do in studio. People who are willing to come to San Diego were a lot more willing to do collabs. That's why Hoovy comes and visits us every few years.
Right. He
Every
wants to
few
leave
months.
Kansas.
He loves leaving Kansas and coming to see us.
Yep.
And so we collab with Hoovy because he's willing to come to the building. And it's a little bit harder when people are further away. And that's the answer to a general answer to the question why we haven't done collabs. I would obviously love to go to Tennessee and collab with Whistling.
Right.
It hasn't been in the cards yet.
Although Whistling replied to some of our reels
Whistling
and
and I have
stories.
been sending messages back and
Nice.
forth. It'd be like if Kennan was texting with who's a big watch person.
Ben Clymer from Houdinki.
Okay. I was more thinking.
I've emailed back and forth with him, buddy, 39M5s.
I was more thinking of the inventor of the timepiece.
But by the way, cool cars, folks from First 11.
Yeah, they said they have a 911 GT3 Touring, a Carrera T, and an Elantra N, and a Kia Sportage. That's sort of the Filippo of the band, I guess.
Hey, Sport is in the name.
Next question from Evan Z24. Hello, guys. What is the nicest car you have seen smoked in, and does it bother you when you see nice cars ruined by cigarettes? It's rare, honestly. Now, Evan Z24 is writing to us from the smoking belt of the country, which is, of course, the
Please.
Southeast. I don't know where people still smoke.
Yeah, maybe.
Nobody smokes California anymore. Most places. I don't see cars ruined by smoke like I used to. It used to be a common problem.
It used to be a real problem.
Yeah.
That's true.
I will say that the problem now that I run into is cars that are ruined by air freshener scent.
Oh,
That's worse. Almost worse sometimes.
You can't get that out. People think you can. I'm in every Turo I get in.
yep.
I was in a Turo the other
Every
day,
Uber.
and it was great. I run an X7 in the Southeast. I was in Atlanta and Chattanooga during Hurricane Helene. I was storm chasing in an X7. And everything about the experience was great, except, the air freshener smell was in the car. And that's like a thing. Every Uber you get into, et cetera, et cetera. At some point, I would rather smell whatever they're trying to cover up
Right.
than the air freshener.
Right. It is. I hate the smell of cigarette smoke. It's frustrating when you see that ruined. And it is still a question that you probably should ask if you're buying a car. Like, test it out yourself.
You think so?
'Cause
You get in a car and
It becomes
smell it
less
before you
so.
buy it? Did you smell your 500 before you bought it?
Yeah, but we test drove it, and for the wagon, we asked the person pretty explicitly, like, is there any?
But he was in Maine. He wasn't going to be a smoker.
Right.
They don't smoke in
But
Maine.
so
They got
I think
a
there's
moose
some
to
value
run
in
away
asking.
from. If a moose comes at you,
Lobsters to eat.
let me ask you a
Did you
question.
see that great video? There was a short of filmed a thing in Colorado where a moose just runs straight into the side
I've
of a Sierra 1500.
No way, really?
Yeah.
What happens? It must be destroyed.
It was like a light hit.
Okay. Because you hit a moose with a car.
But like
it's
it was
all
just like it was a great video. I'll send it to you later.
over. Let me ask you this: You ever smoke in your M5?
Of course not.
You never have the.
Nope, never
You never
just-
want to get out a stick. That's what they call it in his community. Cigar people call cigars sticks, And that's the kind of thing Kennan would do. Don't you agree?
So,
I don't mind a cigar every now and again, but not in the M5, obviously. I mean, I barely drink water in the car. So it would
Drink water in the car?
I mean, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I have Altoids. I love Altoids. I like to, just fresh on. I don't like to open the container in the car because the dust, every time you do that, gets everywhere. It's very irritating.
Then you got to take it to Ryan. That's probably why the AC failed. They got Altoid dust in the damn vents.
I usually have it before I get in the car. I'll have it outside.
You have an Altoid. You close the thing, then you get in. What if the dust is on your fingers?
That doesn't occur. But, it's the act of opening it. It goes poof.
He doesn't do the driving gloves anymore.
Yeah, what you used to wear driving gloves?
Yeah, steering wheel. I decided it needed to be replaced. I'm like, there's no point wearing the gloves. I'm going to replace it
Well,
anyway.
what about the rest of the buttons?
They're fine.
I've made fun of him for years for that, but every time I drive my Courage GT, my hands are sweaty because it scares me to drive the car. And every time I'm in it, I think, I should probably wear driving gloves. Maybe Kennan's not such an idiot after all.
I'm still an idiot, but not as much of one.
Okay, next question is from Alec Metz, 2011. Have you guys ever seen this video Kennan made 11 years ago? I love it. It's perfectly Kennan. It's too long to show right now, but we're going to put it in the description or pin it or something.
Or go to the communities and find the
And
post.
it's a video that Kennan made for E39 Sorts, which is his buddy Ryan's BMW shop. And it is a fantastic video.
We just learned, watching this all together before filming the podcast, that he did this for an economics class.
Yep.
As like an assignment.
I did.
And it has some great definitions of opportunity cost.
Yeah, he defined opportunity cost as defined
by encyclopedia.com. Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, Kennan.
Yes.
I was surprised with one thing about the video. For the last, I don't know, since I've known you 5 years, you've been talking about how the E30 M5 is the greatest car. That's a godly, no car
God's
will
chariot.
ever be better than the E30 M5.
That's accurate.
And you bring up the E30 M5 on the podcast sometimes, rarely.
Today.
But in that video, you have decided there's a different God's chariot, and it is a E39 525i.
That's not what I said.
This requires me to ask the question, could the M5 ever be supplanted? The 525i, which apparently at this time in your life was God's chariot, as defined by Investopedia, could the M5 ever be beaten by something else?
No, and I'll tell you why. In the video, what I said was, the whole point of the video was it was encouraging people to go out and drive and use their cars. Like that was, the point was, your car should be an enjoyable thing if you're a car enthusiast. It should be an escape from your daily life. Just you and your little metal shell is what I say.
I saw that.
And, and at the time, that was the car that I had, and it was that for me. Because every car I have picked has been the design brief behind it. I pick it because I want something that's enjoyable to me. And so the M5 for me is the most enjoyable car I've driven. I just love that car. And ultimately it was the best version of the E39. And so, which I still think is the best 5 Series.
But you understand my point. In the video, you have love of this 525i with a 184 horsepower, 2.5 liter 6-cylinder, right?
I'm surprised you're that. Yes, that is correct.
Eventually, you get the M5, and then the
worse
love
color.
transfers. What I'm saying is there a car out there beckoning you that you don't even know? Does the Cadillac CT5 Blackwing beckon both you and Mark Zuckerberg like a Cayenne limo in the night? Is there a possibility that the M5 may someday be beaten?
No.
Okay. What do you think about the video all these years later?
It's obviously very difficult for me to watch it.
I thought it was pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I still think I'm a pretty good writer when I write stuff like that. But I did a whole series of videos. For those who don't know, E39 Source, before it became a real business for Ryan, we made videos on just like how to repair the cars ourselves, because there were great write-ups about them, but there weren't, and great stuff on forums, but there weren't videos at the time. So Ryan thought they needed to do that. And I would occasionally make entertaining stuff to go along with that. And at that time, we'd started going to like a BMW event called TimmyFest. And that's what actually, right before we started to meet like the current group of friends we still have to this day. Because right around then we all still had like 525s and 528s, and then we all like
They all
M5s.
leveled up to M5.
And now we all still have M5s. We're all still really close friends. And so that video actually, like, it makes me very fond of that period of time.
It's a great shot through the sunroof. Which honestly,
it worked.
It's a good shot.
E39 Source, one of the rare businesses that went from YouTube to brick and mortar. Actually,
It's really the dream for all YouTubers, to be honest.
okay, next question from Big Ultima Hater 6. If you guys weren't working in car-related jobs, what would you be doing for a living? Filippo, what is your answer to
Yeah,
this?
before I joined Cars and Bids, my prior jobs were all in the education data space. So I worked with school districts on education finance, worked with school districts on accountability report cards, stuff like that. So that's where I would still be.
What do you think is duller, the McLaren Supercar series or Filippo's previous life in education, data, and finance?
It's a tough race to the bottom.
What do you think he was doing every day? Like, oh, could you imagine?
I was primarily working with school districts and also writing a lot of ETL.
A lot of what?
You lost me there. I fell asleep.
Extract, transform, load. It's how you, it's like the writing a lot of code to move data around. And
I think he's found something more boring than the 19th Super McLaren in a row. So that's what you'd be doing still.
Yeah,
You might go back to it.
Who knows? God
We
willing.
hope never. Kennan, what would you be doing?
I would probably be one of my other passions that I would have pursued. Either it's watches or something like that, or
You'd be
probably
selling
music
watches?
or something.
You'd be
No, I
selling
don't know
cellos.
if
Like
I'd
at
do that.
Tiffany
I'd
in the
probably-
mall?
No, I'm working for one of the manufacturers would be probably one of my things I would imagine, or one of the companies that markets. I'm
You
working
mean
for like
Hublot?
Richemont Group, or I hate Hublot, but the
I don't know
garbage
anything.
watches.
It's the only watches brand I can think of.
Really, Rolex is the first one that comes to your mind.
Timex? I don't know.
Timex would've worked.
It's getting further away from it. Yeah, I'd probably pursue one of my other passions. But yeah, working in for the watch industry would be very
Or
cool.
for the cello industry.
Or working in the music industry.
No,
would be
not
cool.
the music industry, just the makers of cellos.
You work in the
There
music
are many
biz?
of them.
You work in the music biz like Diddy?
Yeah, because he and I have so much in common.
That's a
What was he
clip we're
driving?
gonna cut out.
Got to be something cool, I would imagine. I can only.
You don't think he had like an MDX, like an A-Spec probably?
I don't think so.
I don't know what I'd be doing. What would I be doing, Filippo?
Not in the automotive space.
It'd be tough
I
to
don't know.
imagine.
It's hard to envision.
Yeah, I've never not
I think
worked in the
I could see a reality where you were still doing some like office Excel-y job as you did at Porsche.
But I
Just,
was
not
working in automotive then. I always have loved real estate even more than cars.
Yeah,
and
real
I
estate I
would maybe
could
be
see.
in real estate.
loan,
All right.
loan originator.
Yeah, but you do like. I
Mortgage
mean,
broker.
you're a great writer, though. I could see you still working in a
I'll write
journalistic capacity
descriptions.
for something.
I'll write descriptions for Honda.
I would love.
Yeah.
Come see
I would love
this
that.
beautiful.
Oh, maybe it would be quirks and features of houses, like those great tours you did many years ago. Maybe
I love
that's
those.
where you would have found your niche.
Next time I need to sell a house, can you write?
You want me to write the
description?
description? Yeah. If you pay me the realtor commission.
Well, at the moment, that's very negotiable.
Next question. We're going to do 2 more questions. Next question from Shirts2. Challenge for Kennan. Do a German Trump impression.
Oh my goodness.
I need to think on that one.
Can you do
Okay,
each
I'm gonna-
individually first? Do a German impression, do a Trump impression, and just combine them.
I could do the two arguing, maybe.
Let's try it. And then
Don't
just see if they
understand in
meld.
your country you have to have guns. Everything everywhere. So many guns. Your flags everywhere. Don't understand. Look, we like guns in this country. You're not going to tell us we won the war. You can't come over here and tell us. That is true. That is correct. It was a dark period in our time, but we have a very safe country. You have all these problems. There are no problems here.
Combine them.
And there's no way to do it.
The problem with combining them is that there is a vast difference between Trump, who's sort of the stereotypical American, at least to Europeans,
Yeah.
and the stereotypical German, who is the
Who's the exact
stereotypical
opposite.
European to Americans.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It
It's
It's
very
jive.
difficult. It would be hard to do.
You can't really. You can't just mix and match them. That's how the impressions work. Because then, guess what? It's no longer an impression of what you're doing. And you could, you could do Trump talking about German things,
Right,
which
right.
might work, but it doesn't. They don't really
Can you
mix.
talk about Oktoberfest, please?
Trump talking about Oktoberfest. They like beer. They like beer over there. I said, wow, there's so many different types of beers. I didn't know that. A lot of beers. But one thing that goes well with beer, America. That's what goes great with beer. Not this German crap.
They're so good every time.
Okay, last question is from Excuse M3. So it's like excuse me, but excuse
I
M3.
like it. Very, very
This is to
clever.
Doug, Kennan, and Filippo. Thanks. That's the crew. What is your opinion of enthusiast cars with rebuilt titles that are repaired properly? Do they have a place on Cars and Bids? Would any of you consider buying a sought-after car for cheaper due to it having a bad title? So second question there is, do they have a place on Cars and Bids? Yeah. I've always felt that Cars and Bids should be like very democratized in terms of what it sells. Sometimes Kennan gets mad at me for selling bad E30 M5s. And I'm like, look,
He
you
really
don't get
does.
it. He really does. He gets
Yeah.
so mad at me.
Well,
and I'm like, look,
disgraceful.
but people might be wanting a track car. People might be wanting, like,
Then don't get an M5.
yeah, no, but they want an M5 because they're a fan of the platform or they love the S62 or whatever it is.
It's a big tent, man. Big tent.
my point is, like, there is a place for those cars in all situations, and I don't like to be hoity-toity about it, because my view is you never know what somebody wants to do. Maybe they want to drive one in the desert and run over a television. I don't know. And so what I'm thinking is...
Specific.
What I'm thinking is that there's always a place for those kinds of cars. Personally, would I buy one? Not unless there was a specific reason to, and a good example is that M3 wagon thing that we sold.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I would never really buy one. Or that GLK that's live right now.
This one?
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't think it's self-shuttled.
It had been hit, I think.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to. But this car was a rebuilt title, but what they did was they, like, rebuilt it into obviously a much better car than it ever was, because real thought went into it. And this is kind of the only way to get one of these. Most people are not taking regular nice ones and turning them into...
I think that I agree with you. And, like, fundamentally the reason for that is it's salvage titled or rebuilt titled, depending on the state, because the insurance company thought that it wasn't worth enough to merit fixing.
Right.
Generally, it means that it was damaged just way more than you can fix. But the exception that I would personally consider is there are older cars that I value, but that the market doesn't really value, where repairs aren't actually that expensive. Take like a nice Saab 900. It's not worth anything. It's worth $1,000.
Yeah, I mean, a parking lot dent would probably total that
out. So, like, there are cases where I would consider it.
Yeah.
But it's not usually for newer cars. Like, the savings don't attract me enough.
Yeah, I mean, I would always worry a little bit about safety, even with a car like this, like what was put back properly and all that. This one was maintained, was repaired a tremendous professional way, but you're still kind of wondering. And so that would always be my concern. But I would do it if the perfect car came up, which we've sold a few cars like this that were rebuilt and sort of reborn as a better car, and that's when I would consider.
Also, if you really think about it, a lot of classic cars fundamentally salvage rebuilt cars. Think about how many
just by being a classic,
just by being 1920 whatever.
Think about how many incredibly high value Ferraris or whatnot really have been rebuilt a lot of times.
A lot of GTOs got smashed at their time.
Oh, I mean, that's truly
you'd
true.
buy one of those.
I mean, a lot of those cars have basically no real parts left.
At the same time,
there's a serial number.
They were tube chassis. You cut out the bent tube and you welded it in a fixed one. I mean, it wasn't. But no, there's a good point.
I would it would be a hard pitch personally, but
would you ever get one rebuilt car?
I would. It would have to be something really, really special. Generally, I would avoid it pretty much like everybody else does, because I just want the peace of mind, and also I don't want the story when I go to sell it. Ultimately,
yeah. Right,
and
that's true. Although if you can buy it for enough of a bargain, then the story just kind of you benefited from it. The next day benefits.
Yeah, but you know,
the real key is title washing it. Am I right? Okay.
Shout out to the state of Florida.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This is our greatest podcast. Look at that GLK. This is our greatest podcast we've ever done. The best car we've ever listed on the site is live right now. It's a manual GLK with a V8. Go buy that and many other cars. Carsandbids.com. Any other parting thoughts?
Carsandbids.com.
E30 M3.
Goodbye.